about to start part 10 of building Dancing Feather, the Boston pilot boat. And at this point I've got some things that have finally come in. I get a new steering wheel, we get some anchors, starting to put the mast together, and won't be too far from starting the rigging. I've managed to put the wheel in. Looks fairly nice. It's a nice carved boxwood wheel. And the pair of anchors have arrived. I think they're pretty nice looking anchors. I'll have to get some chain to hang those. And right now I'm working on making these two pieces here to join the top mast to the main mast and the top mast to the foremast. And the top of the mast has been squared off, so now we have to drill some square holes. So if we measure across the flats, they're about 3/16. So these are 3/16 holes, and then I'm filing the 3/16 holes square so that they'll fit over the top of the mast. After I get all the holes drilled, we'll cut out the parts and shape them. I just happen to have a small file that by the time you get up where the taper's widest point, it's just about 3/16 of an inch, so that works out nicely in making square holes. Starting off with round ones. Do a little on each side until you're finally getting all the way down in with the whole width of the file. This is where that sheep's foot rest comes in handy to support the work. Now that we got the full 3/16 done, we should be able to put the mast on. Look at that. Almost like I knew what I was doing. I've center punched a hole. It's 5/32 of an inch away from the edge of the square holes. And if I've done my calculations properly, when I drill a 3/16 hole for the base of the top mast, that should leave a 1/16 of an inch between the top mast and the square hole. So it looks like that's going to work out all right. It's going to leave about a 1/16 of an inch between the top mast and the mast. We need to cut out 4 of these, but that all fits together pretty nicely, joining the top mast to the mast. I'll just stick it in place in the boat for a quick look at it. Okay, that's looks like it's going to work out pretty nicely. But before I can glue the top mast, I need to put the sail hoops onto the mast first. Otherwise, that's not going to work out too good. Trying to put them on after. I had to clear the little fixture I made to position the mast to clear it for the boom rest that is glued in place. So we can now clamp the mast to the fixture and get a true 7-degree rake on the mast. So should work out okay. Now we have both masts dry fitted. First thing I'm going to do is give them a coat of poly wipe, wipe on poly. Get a little bit of a finish on them. And then we're going to put the mast rings, which I have over here, on. And then we'll glue the top mast. So it's a little hard to see with all the stuff in the way here. Let me see if I can get something behind it. There we go. You can see that a little better. Just starting to rig the anchor, and I bought some chain that's going up over the winch and down into the chain locker. And there aren't many hobby shops locally anymore. Everything's mail order. So if you want to find some of these materials where you can actually look at them and hold them, you got to find other sources. And this one I got at Michael's craft store, and it's a chain that's made for the jewelry thing. And I took a black strand out of this necklace, and that actually appears to be working out reasonably well. Now we have both anchors hanging from the cat's heads. Chains are going down into the chain lockers, come up over the winches. Time for a cocktail. I'm working a little bit on the masts, and I just painted where the top mast joins the mast. So trying to work my way towards where we can start rigging. And before I do that, I want to mount it on its walnut base, make it a little easier to do the rigging instead of working on this base. And I just put the final coat on the walnut base over here. And I think it came out pretty nice. Just a gorgeous piece of wood. The grain on it is amazing. Anyhow, we'll be mounting the boat on there pretty quickly. It's time to mount the boat on the base. So get the pedestals in place here. There we go. Pretty nice. Turn it around and check it in this direction. Yeah, I'd say we're pretty vertical with the stern post. So I think it'll be a lot easier to do the rigging now that it's mounted to the base. Well, I messed up. The plan was to glue the mast in place while the boat was still sitting in the cradle. So now that I got it mounted to the base, I won't be able to use my fixture to set the correct angle on the mast. So I cut a piece of wood that's the same height as the cradle. So now we can bridge across that with the fixture and hold the mast in place. So it's just as well worked out this way because I got a few more things I want to do to the mast before I glue them in. And this should work out. On the masts, there are these iron bands that the blocks attach to. And there's 3 bands on the foremast and 2 bands on the main mast. And then we have some eyes that we have to put in for the other blocks that attach up at this point. And the way I'm going to simulate that is cutting pieces of this black paper that in turn will be then glued into place on the mast. Now we've glued the iron bands on the mast, so now it's a matter of drilling some holes and putting the eye bolts in. I've changed the collet in my Dremel tool out to accept the 22 thousandths diameter drill, which is just the right size for the stem of the eye bolts. So we're going to be drilling the holes now in the mast for the eye bolts. Probably help if I plugged it in. Now we can glue the eye-rings in. The main mast is being held by the fixture, and I've applied glue both down at the keel and at the deck, and now we're just waiting for the glue to dry, and then we'll move the fixture forward and we'll use that to set the foremast as well. Now that the main mast is solidly glued in place, we're gluing the foremast in. And it looks pretty good straight between the foremast and the main mast. And both masts are now at 7 degrees of rake. So it looks like a pretty nice setup. Well, the masts are glued in place and they're vertical, they line up with each other nicely. The rake of the mast is the same on both masts, 7 degrees. We're ready to start looking at putting dead eyes and starting rigging. These are the dead eyes on my model with Blue Nose. And the chain plates come down off the dead eyes outside the hull and attached to the hull. And on the Baltimore Clipper, the other sailing ship that I did, there is a shelf that the chain plates go over and keep the dead eyes and chain plates outside the hull. The Dancing Feather is a little different. The dead eyes on Dancing Feather go through the top of the cap rail. The chain plates go through the top of the cap rail and then down into the covering boards. And they do that on the inside of the bulwarks instead of the outside of the bulwarks. So that's something different that I haven't seen before. And I've marked, don't know if we can see it here or not, but I've marked the locations for the dead eyes. So I'm going to have to put the chain plates on the dead eyes and then drill the holes large enough for the dead eyes or the chain plates to go through. And they'll go down through on the other side here. I don't know if you can see it, but they'll go down through not only the cap rail, but they'll end up going down through the covering board as well. I've put a couple of pins in the top of this block of wood and then slid a dead eye over the top of the pins so that the pins are holding the dead eye in place so that I can wrap it with wire. You can see I got a piece of fine black wire wrapped around it. So now we're going to twist that wire and make it into a chain plate, what looks like a chain plate. To do that, I'm using a tool called safety wire pliers. Years ago, when I restored a 1946 Aranca Champion airplane, there's a lot of fasteners in the airplane that are safety wired against vibration. And this is a special tool for that. It has a cutter for wire, and then the jaws come shut. There's a hook here in the handle. So when I squeeze the handle tight and then push down on this, it locks on the hook and keeps the jaws tight. So once you do that, it works a bit like a Yankee screwdriver and twists the wire. So let's see how that goes. I grip the wire. It's around the dead eye. We shut the jaws up here so they can't move around. I'd like to get that up just a little tighter at the top, so I'm going to grab it again. Whoops, of course it came off. I'm going to shut the camera off while I fix this. Okay, I got it back on the pins again. We'll try this one more time. Grip it, lock onto it. I think that's about as good as we're going to get it. So that's a dead eye on a chain plate. I'm going to put just a drop of glue on it so that it doesn't want to rotate after I get it in the right position. I discovered it was simpler to try and just use one pin to hold the dead eye rather than try to feed it over two. It's got to be difficult. And don't worry about the rotation of the dead eye in the wire until it's all installed, and then rotate it and put a drop of glue or keep it where you want it. And that way you don't have to worry about using two pins to orient the direction. Well, we've created 8 dead eyes with chain plates attached. And I measured the twisted chain plates, measure 1/32 of an inch in diameter. So now we'll be able to come over here and drill out these holes in the rail and start to put the dead eyes in place. I just finished gluing in the dead eyes and chain plates. And you can see on the other side where they go down through the covering boards inside the bulwarks. Like I say, this is different than anything I've rigged before. We're starting the rigging, and the first thing I'll be doing is the mainmast stays, and I've selected a black thread with a fairly substantial diameter to it because the mainstays would have been one of the heaviest lines on the boat. And there are basically two types of rigging on a sailing ship. You have standing rigging and running rigging. And the rigging that doesn't move, it's really intended to hold things in place like the mast. It's called the standing rigging. And the rigging that moves for setting sails and whatnot is the running rigging. The standing rigging tends to be coated with black tar to keep it waterproof and from rotting. So we use black thread for that. And the running rigging is usually represented by a lighter color, tan, or natural rope type of color, and that will be passing through the blocks for adjusting the sails and whatnot. So I've got an electrical clip here. I've made a little U-shaped piece of wire to set the distance between the dead eyes until I start lacing them, and I've got a little electrical clip holding the leads together while I start to seize the two together. And I've ordered a different type of electrical clip than this that I think will be even better, more useful. And they're due to come in the mail today, so hopefully those will show up fairly soon. I've just seized the first of the dead eyes in place, and I'll be trimming the seizing line off in here in a minute, and then we'll tie the one next to it. Okay, I have the dead eyes seized onto both of the mainstays, and it's going to be difficult with my fingers getting in the way, but I'll try to film how we're going to lace these. Take my spacer out. Take a bit of line and I'm going to dip it in glue. And I should have a piece of paper towel in here to dry that in. So we're going to start off at the top in an outside hole. When I say outside hole, you have a center in two outside holes, with the center being at the top and the center being at the bottom on the bottom one. So now I'm going to tie a knot. Pull that knot up to the dead eye, and I'm going to put a little drop of glue on it so it won't go anywhere. And just to keep it out of the way, I'm going to nip that off. So now I need to cut off a piece where I'll know I'll have plenty of line. And I'm going to dip that end into the glue. Let me get a piece of paper towel here. I don't like wiping the glue off of my fingers and getting it all over my fingers if I don't have to. So now we're coming from the back side to the front on this one. So we're going to go from the front side to the back on the same eye on the bottom. get enough glue on it. It's important to get enough glue on there so it kind of stiffens up the end of it so you can poke it through the holes. Okay, so now we come through the front of that one to the back side. Now we're going to put this one in the back side of the top. Now we'll go back down through the bottom. This is just not cooperating. Just not stiffening up. Maybe if I just cut the tip at an angle, might help. It seemed to work okay. And again, well, we want to come from the back side on this. What the heck's wrong with this thing? It doesn't want to stay firm on the tip. Then we want to go back through here. Try to pull that fairly tight. And we'll put a drop of glue on it after tying it around. There's the first deadeye. Lacing. Well, got the mast stays all in place with their deadeyes. Looks pretty nice. So that's the first of the standing rigging, and it looks like it's probably a good place to end part 10 and probably start part 11, finishing off the standing rigging.